totally stumbled into the thing today.
Okay. So we have a record on, so I'm going to. So I'm going to shift gears and we're going to move into the candidate forum. And we've got basically two groups of candidates. We've got people running for the state legislature and facing primary challengers for the nomination in District 41, covering Camden and Rockport, and District 43, covering Thomaston South, Thomaston, Cushing, St. George, and half of Owl's Head. And so we're going to work with them first and then move on to the two candidates running for district attorney and the two candidates running for sheriff. And the ground rules that I set out for the candidates, which are also going to apply to you, this is a time for the candidates to present themselves clearly so that you as voters can make your decisions. And our goal is to have this as a congenial meeting. And so I've asked the candidates to have absolutely no personal attacks. We will not tolerate that. And that is also true for you as an audience when it comes to questions from the audience. We will have questions coming in from the moderator to begin with, and when we're finished with all 8 candidates, we will turn to audience questions until we run out of time. And we expect to go, we'll see if things peter out, but no later than 7:30, and then kind of break into congenial conversation as we make our way home through, hopefully, no rain. And we do have a timekeeper who will be attending to the time, and she's a former school teacher, so she knows how to crack a whip. And the opening comments will be no more than 3 minutes, and at 15 seconds before it's over, she's going to hold up a little sign that says 15 seconds, and then she will ring a bell, and the bell will sound like intrusive, but here. And that's going to be true for answering questions as well. It'll be 2 minutes, and the closing statements at the end will be 2 minutes apiece. Any questions on any of those candidates?
No.
All right. And so right now, we're going to be working with the 4 candidates for House districts. And in order of flip coin, we're going to have Josh Gerritsen and Marcus Mrowka. Mrowka, thank you very much. Peter Jenks and Rhiannon Hampson to start out with. So without further ado, Peter, opening statement. Josh, opening statement. Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Democrats. My name is Josh Gerritsen, and I'm running for House District 41, representing Camden and Rockport. I was born in Hawaii, and I moved to Camden when I was 6 years old. And I'm proud to have gone through the whole public school system, from first grade all the way through high school. After graduating, I left for 10 years, but I came back to start a farm and to serve my community. And I got right to work. I was on the Lincolnville Select Board for 6 years, on the Waldo County Budget Committee for 6 years, 3 as chair, the chair of the Broadband Committee, and I helped save the Mary E. Taylor building, my former historic middle school, from being demolished. I was also on the Waldo, on the Nichols Solid Waste Transfer Station Board of Directors, and in Rockport, I was on the Rockport Harbor Strategic Task Force to help come up with a plan to make our parks and our working waterfront more resilient. Now, I'm running for State House because the cost of housing, healthcare, and electricity are out of control. Let me be frank, we can all see it. We are in a housing crisis right now. The cost of housing is too expensive for most people, and the housing that is available, there's just not enough of it. And so I want to fight to tax second homes at a higher rate for out-of-state residents, to regulate short-term rentals, and also to build more housing at a mass scale, to deploy more water and sewer, because the housing crisis affects all of us. You may think that, I've got a house, this doesn't affect me. But what happens when someone calls, when you need 911 and the people who would come save you can't find a place to live, or who's going to work in the restaurants or the schools if they can't find a place to live? Now, growing up in the 90s, I remember trick-or-treating with my friends, and we could knock on almost any door, and someone would greet us with candy. But these days, half those homes are empty for half the year because they're either second homes or Airbnbs. I want Camden Rockport to be a place where my sons, Will and Simon, and the other children of our community could move back here and afford a place to live if they want to. And I also believe in universal health care. And I would fight for a single-payer system right here in Maine, but in the very short term to at least have a public option. So, yep, I'm from here, and I feel like things have to change. It's too expensive. No, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Marcus?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Marcus Mrowka. I am running for House for Camden and Rockport. How many Camden and Rockport voters do we have here tonight? All right. Well, I'm running to be your representative. I'm also here on my birthday, so spending my evening with all of you. I'm running because I believe a better future is possible for all, and that we need leaders who will fight for that better future with everything that they've got. I haven't just talked about the issues making it harder and harder for working people and small businesses to get by. I've led on those solutions throughout my career. I've led on our school board as chair, where we've created the state's first nature-based pre-K, expanded outdoor and project-based learning, introduced universal pre-K, fought for housing solutions, and became one of the first high schools in the state to go phone-free. This leadership also includes oversight of the multi-million-dollar budget, building projects, leading the board through crises, and managing constituent relations. I've led in state government at the Maine Department of Education, championing investments in our schools and empowering teachers. I know how state agencies and government works, and I know how to get things done and how they can be improved. I've led alongside people like Senator Elizabeth Warren and economist Joe Stiglitz at the Roosevelt Institute on policies to rewrite the rules of our economy so they work for everyone and not just the wealthy and well-connected. And I fought alongside working people while in the labor movement at SEIU and AFT to secure better wages, benefits, and working conditions, and pass the Affordable Care Act, Wall Street reform, and other consequential legislation. I'm also a small business owner, helping unions and nonprofits drive change. This work is deeply personal to me. I was raised by my grandma, who came of age during the Great Depression and World War II. She raised me on her Social Security check, and she instilled in me New Deal values of hard work, responsibility, fairness, and a deep understanding that we're all in this together. And when she passed away when I was 10, it was my public schools and teachers who created the safe, nurturing, and supportive environment I needed to thrive and get out of a bad home situation. I've spent my career fighting for those New Deal values I was raised with, and for every kid to have the great public education that I did. And I'll do the same in the legislature. I love my community. This is my chosen home, and my partner and I can't imagine living anywhere else. But we know it's getting harder and harder for folks to afford to live to work, raise a family, and thrive in our area. As your representative, I'll fight every day to make life more affordable for you, to strengthen our schools, to support the small businesses that power our communities, and to defend our freedoms against the attacks coming from Washington. This is a make or break moment for all the things we care about. We need someone in this role with experience. I have the leadership and experience to deliver for you on day one. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Peter?
My name is Peter Jenks. I'm running for representative of District 43, and you gave me only 3 minutes for a preacher, only to preach 3 minutes is rather a challenge. For over 30 years, I have served District 43 as the whole region as a clergy person, representing all sorts of people, whatever their economics little bit louder?
No,
I don't
don't
think
pull
we
the
can touch
You
microphone
that.
can't touch
closer.
them. I have had to represent people, all races, all economic perspectives, whether you have a $10 million house on the shore or you're homeless and living under the stairs of the public library. I have, whatever the religious perspective, whatever your gender is, whatever your age, I've had to represent all sorts of people in all sorts of conditions in our region. And it has been a great honor, and I have learned a great deal about that, having to be able to represent and speak on behalf of people who sometimes cannot speak for themselves. I have been a firefighter, a police chaplain, a town moderator. I headed the 4th of July parade in Thomaston. I've been many boards and committees. I helped initiate the Trekker program, trying to connect people who have moved here in the community from other places whose kids have grown, and the kids in our community. How can we build relationships to make this community welcoming for our kids? I've been part of working with a homeless coalition, trying to get there and got the funding for them so they could get their 901c3 nonprofit status again after they lost it when Hospitality House closed. I've been part of the group that represented after Hurricane Katrina with the Red Cross and other emergencies people to unite together when FEMA called us together to try to find out a way that we here in Maine could respond if there was a crisis in Maine. And that was kind of an awakening experience of how we all live in little silos up and down the coast and within our own communities. And how do we break out of those silos that we can get to know each other? And that's been a big part of who I have been and continue to be and want to be as a representative. That we're not just St. George or Thomason or Cushing or this group or that, but we are a community together. I've been part of the various art groups within our community, which is a vital aspect of our community, whether it be the Watts Hall Community Players or the various artists, painters, and getting shows together, the DePonte String Quartet, Downey Singers. Uh-oh, I gotta really move here now. We are at a point in our state that is earth-shaking. I am here to make a change, whether
It's a good ending.
As I told them, they can always finish the sentence they started, or the
I'm
thought.
gonna cede 15 seconds to Peter.
No.
I want to hear the end of it.
We are at a turning point. I'm one that can think outside the box and initiate programs, look at it, and tax issues are huge. We've got to find a solution. The property tax, and this is the time to do it.
Thank you, Peter. Rhiannon, we're not going to start timing
Well,
until
my
she
class.
starts.
My mom's a teacher, so I know. This is turn. All right, now we can start. Well, I thought growing up as a scrappy poor kid in rural Maine, I thought I had a lot of jobs, but listening to Peter's list is really humbling. Thank you. So my name's Rhiannon Hampson. I'm also running to represent District 43. I'm here today with a lot of hats on. A lot of people are. Most people hear me say this about myself all the time. I'm a reluctant dairy and livestock farmer. I accidentally fell in love at a farmer's market. I highly warn against them now, unless you want to come to Camden, where we are every Saturday. And that meant that this morning I was standing in a bunch of muck helping load pigs on a trailer to get them down into the woods for their summer home. But it also means that I don't have this luxurious lifestyle you may imagine when I say dairy and livestock farming, so I work off-farm full-time. I work off-farm primarily on policy, heritage industry policy, so farming, fishing, and forestry, and also economic development. Because I tell people I can't live here if I can't make a living here. So economic development is not really I'm not a mean capitalist, I promise. It's really more about placemaking. How do we have people who want to live somewhere be able to live there? How do I have my son live in the school district that I want him to be in because his friends, who are also going to Trekkers, are there, right? Because this is where we know we can have the life we want. That's what I want for my neighbors, and that's part of why I'm running. So I've done this for a long time. I worked for Congress. I was very fortunate to work for Congresswoman Shelley Pingree, and I covered her ag, fisheries, and forestry portfolio. I got to actually write some legislation, put somebody else's name on it so there's no risk, and have a vast ledge council who goes over all of that for us. And then I was appointed to be the USDA Rural Development State Director. So that's a presidential appointment. I cannot tell you how honored I was. I made sure they put that I went to a land-grant university on it. I asked them 3 times if they knew who I was. They said, yes, it's fine, we want you. And I did that, and I served really proudly. I ran one of the largest affordable home programs in the entire country here in the state of Maine. It's the Section 502 USDA Rural Development Program. I helped lead our community facilities program to shift that to be able to pay for housing. So for firefighters and EMTs and all the folks who can't afford to live here, you can now use the community facilities program to build housing for those folks and teachers as well. That's a nationwide program. I instituted one of the first housing mortgage moratoriums during a crisis event. So when the shooting in Lewiston happened, within 2 weeks, I had a mortgage moratorium set up through a federal agency, which, by the way, is really hard. I'm really proud. So that no one who was directly affected by that shooting had to worry about their mortgage for at least 6 months. So these are the things that I've done. And I want to do all of this and more as your representative. Ask me more questions later. All right, ding me.
Thank you, Ruth. So these are your candidates in House District 41 and 43. And I have a series of questions for them, and I'll ask the questions and then repeat them as necessary if you start to lose track of them. And Marcus, you'll be starting out answering these questions, so it'll go, as I ask them, it'll be going down the line, and you will finish up. Josh, understand?
For every question?
Pardon?
For every question I'll be?
No, you'll be the first person for this one. I'll point out who goes first. So, due to the actions of the Trump administration, Maine will face massive cuts to programs and initiatives supporting all Maine people and targeting kids, families, older adults, starting in 2027, deepening in 2028. What do you see as priority programs to preserve, and how will you ensure that there is adequate funding available? If necessary, what combination of program cuts and increased revenue will you support?
Yeah, this is a biggie. You know, I work in the education realm, so definitely feel this very strongly. You know, this relates back to some of the things that I want to push. You know, one being healthcare and establishing a public option in the state, and you know, being able to better fund our children and SNAP benefits. And the whole host of programs that go to supporting our kids and our families. We can fund this by continuing to have tax fairness in the state. The millionaire's tax was a great start, but we can go farther. You know, I support, you know, taxing more the people who are fortunate enough to have second or third homes in our state. They need to chip in a little bit more to have some fairness here. So we can use that revenue to offset some of what we're facing in terms of the federal cuts. But then, you know, we also need to look at how we are funding programs that specifically help the Mid-Coast. When I was in state government, I would hear all the time, you're in Camden and Rockport, you're doing fine. That's just not true. We have a few houses on the ocean that are really nice, but most people are just trying to get by. And so I will continue to fight for changing funding formulas that's based on median incomes and not based on valuations.
Thank you, Marcus. Peter, same question? Do you need me to reread it?
Me or Josh?
You.
Oh, me?
Yeah, we're going to go one down and around. Yep.
This is why we have to first address the tax structure of Maine. It's been going back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. We have to find a fundamental way to think differently about funding in Maine. I think, Josh, you have some great ideas about how you presented them at the beginning. Go along with those. We have unsustainable growth in education costs, unsustainable costs in healthcare costs. This is a time when we have to be very creative, not just to look at how we can cut things, which is what the Republicans want to do. We need to think differently in our programs that unite the state together, how we can work together and not just fight each other, because the the very wealthiest people in the world are trying to keep us fighting together. But when we can find creative solutions, whether with education, healthcare, housing, all of these issues, what we did with truckers, it's a community-based way to address needs in our community. We as a community need to break out of silos to work together as a region. And that's what I've been working, pulling my hair out sometimes, that it's not just this group or that group, but it's all of us together. We're in this together, and this is what I'm rooting for and pushing for, and radical change to think differently about our state as we together, not divided.
Thank you. Rhiannon?
Oh,
Do you understand?
I'm not sure.
Need the question repeated at all?
I think I can riff on this.
All right,
I'll go for
good.
it. Hopefully I'm going to answer the right question then. So when I think about program cuts, I also think about opportunity for us to shift where we're investing those dollars, right? So that we can save other dollars. Unfortunately, in appropriations, usually you can't have a pay for, so I can't say to you that if we put more healthy food in school, we actually will spend less on main care costs, but we know that that's true. So I would think about shifting some of our funding priorities around. So where we can partner with folks like Maine Coast Fishermen's Association, Good Shepherd Food Bank, Maine Federation of Farmers Markets. If we invest more dollars in the Mainer Feeding Mainers program, the Fishermen Feeding Mainers program, and some of those harvest bucks, which is a federal program that we match here in the state as well for additional dollars, we can then save likely on some of those additional costs, right? I heard about an amazing 3K program down in St. George. And that 3K program so far, because they're investing in early childhood education, not only is that childcare for 3-year-olds, which our working parents desperately need, so then they can go earn more money and grow our revenue base with their payroll taxes, but those kids are now requiring fewer costly social and educational interventions when they're at school later on. So we can shift the way we're prioritizing our funding dollars. I don't think we actually need to cut as many things as maybe some folks would like us to cut, but I think doing an assessment first to see where we can save on some of our expenditures would be the most important thing.
Thank you, Rhiannon. Josh, same question?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with everything you guys are saying. You really covered it well. I do feel like healthcare and housing, these are the top issues. Housing especially, so many of our societal issues stem from a lack of housing. I was talking to my friend Pat McLean about abuse survivors, and for them, if they don't have a place to live, if they can't flee to somewhere else, they're stuck with their abusers. And I think so much of it has to come down to housing. You know, as I said, taxing second homes at a higher rate, a millionaire's tax. Millionaires need to pay way more of their fair share. And healthcare. We've got so many inefficiencies in having a for-profit healthcare system in Maine and in the United States. Medicare for all federally is clearly the way to go. That's why the rest of the Western world has universal healthcare. But we can't count on the federal government to come save us, clearly, with Trump. And even if we get a Democrat in the White House, it'll take time for something as bold as that. But I feel like in Maine, we're scrappy, and in this state, we have the ability to look after each other. And so, yeah, I think we just need more of these programs right here, and universal health care funded by us here, as well as a consumer-owned utility. You know, just keeping our costs down. I think that's the way to do it.
Thank you, Josh. So next question. I'm going to be aiming this at Peter to start, and we'll come around the table from there. So Peter, we are in a period of decreasing collaboration between Democrats and Republicans. And Republican leadership has actively acted to stop further collaboration within the legislature. As a new legislature, please talk about your approach to this issue, what specifically you can do as a freshman legislature.
One of my strengths in this is the MAGA assault on our government is unprecedented. As a pastor, to address the Christian nationalist movement trying to undermine our government and undermine our churches needs to be fought, needs to be stood up to. And a lot of the Republican Party, which has been taken over by MAGA, needs to be addressed. And for somebody, I have the strength to do that. I have the knowledge to do that. I have done that. And that voice needs to be heard in the legislature, that it's not a Christian will, this is what what God is saying, to challenge that and say, no, that's not the case. The Republican Party needs to be saved. They need to somehow find their soul again. And the MAGAs need to have someone to stand up, stand up against them. And especially this Christian nationalism that is infiltrating and leading their way. And this is my voice in that.
Thank you, Peter. Rhiannon, same question?
Yeah, so one of the best parts about Maine is that we are the smallest town ever, and we can get to everybody in 2 moves. And one of the best parts about the work that I do is that I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of people across the state, and many actually of our sitting legislators and former legislators. So I served on the Blue Economy Task Force during the last legislative session, and Representative Strout, who is from Millbridge and is a Republican, quite a Republican as a matter of fact. We have a lot of things in common. We both want the best for Jonesport Beals, and we want the CTE school there to survive, and we want University of Maine at Machias to be a really thriving space. And that's in her district, and that's where I grew up, and we know that we can work together to have those kinds of things. So I use a phrase, I call it collaboration without compromise. I'm not going to pretend that I do not have the values that I have, and I certainly am going to stand up for the values that I have every chance I get. I'm not going to let you tell me what bathroom my child can or cannot use, but I will probably redirect our conversation to find the things that we can agree on. We all need affordable housing. I need my child to actually get to a school that is still open and functioning, and I need him to have the transportation to get there so that he can even worry about what bathroom he's going to use that day. So these are the things I think that we can get to. I don't need to engage in these sort of value-based arguments. I was 12 years old on my first soapbox when my mom told me I wasn't going to change anybody's mind by yelling at them, and I should probably stop. And I didn't, but maybe I got a little quieter. So I'm not going to try to change their mind about these values-based propositions. I'm going to try to live my values and demonstrate to them that we can still get things done for people, and that you can live your values as a decent person, and maybe they want to get along too.
Josh?
So I'm a proud progressive, and I will never compromise on that. But the thing about what's going on in our country right now, with this huge political divide between the left and the right, MAGA and Democrats, we share this country together, right? No one is going anywhere. We have to learn how to get along. I'm really thankful that I have a brother. He's a libertarian, and we get along great. We're very close now, and I'm frankly very thankful for him, because he's helped me see. He didn't vote for Trump, but he's helped me see the other side of the country, and to listen, and to not just think, well, the liberal position, like this is the right position. He's also very smart, so he's always poking holes in my arguments, and so. In the legislature, I would really approach it as with open arms. I mean, I'm an optimist. I really don't try not to judge anyone on their opinions, on their political ideology. Coming from Lincolnville, I think that has helped me as well. I mean, I worked with a lot of people on the Waldo County Budget Committee, on different boards there, that we didn't have the same political ideology, but we were able to put that aside and get things done. And I will say also that I'm a filmmaker, so that is my day job. And a big part of being a documentary filmmaker is listening well. One of my favorite films that I worked on was a documentary about pigs, where my mom and I went around the world and talked to people about pigs and why they love them, why they hated them. And my favorite part was going on a hog hunt in Texas with 5 guys with AR-15s and thermal and night vision scopes. And we had a great time. And they definitely are not Democrats.
Well, on that note, Marcus.
So being on the school board in Maine, I think, prepares you very well for this. As a school board, we can only act as a collective. Nobody has an individual voice. They can't be out in the paper saying what they want. We have to get to a common solution, and then once the board decides on that, we all have to fall in line whether we voted yes or no. And so that approach, being able, chairing that board and dealing with, 12, 13 people who have very different points of view, Republican, Democrats, and getting to common solutions for our kids has been part of what I've been able to do over the last 6 years. I agree with everybody that I'm never going to compromise my values, but I'm going to try to find solutions. We need to work with Republicans if we're going to win this tax on second and third homes. There's no other way around it. In my day job, with one of my labor union jobs, we worked with this Christian group in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria because they had a connection to these devices that would provide clean water to folks. And I had Randy Weingarten, who's one of the most progressive leaders out there, and this guy from a very Christian right-wing organization. We were able to come together, work, and deliver clean water facility. We were able to facilitate clean water in villages across Puerto Rico by putting aside what divided us and focusing on what united us in that moment. So I have a lot of experience bringing people together. It's how I approach what I do in my life, and would bring that to the legislature as well. And I think that's part of a fun challenge.
Thank you, Marcus. All right, so last question for this group. It's probably the easiest one. We'll see. As a freshman representative, you'll be assigned to one or more legislative committees, typically 2. If you had your choice of committees, which you may or may not, which 2 committees would you choose, and how would that committee benefit the people of your district? And Rhiannon, this is yours to start.
Oh, good. Okay. It's not like I have not been thinking about this since the 5th grade. So I actually, and when I testify before the legislature sometimes or before committee, I always am like, oh, I wish I were on that committee. So I would love to serve on the Ag Conservation and Forestry Committee for fairly obvious reasons. And I would also like to serve on Energy and Natural Resources. I think these are the 2 committees that both encompass a lot of what I first have a passion for, so I think I will do a better job. It's something I feel very passionate about. Anne can be on taxation forever if she wants to. I don't want to fight her for that. And also, given that we have working waterfront to protect in our community, working lands to protect in our community, and then also a resource use-based economy, these are the things that in land use planning will all come under that. And I think those are some of the critical issues facing our district right now. So those are the committees that I would choose to be on.
Thank you, Rhiannon.
For me, there's a top choice and everything else is kind of secondary. EUT is my dream committee. Okay, energy, utilities, technologies, because I'm kind of an energy nerd. I've got solar panels. I drive an electric car. Sustainability was my degree in college, environmental studies. And so I see how technology can help not only lower people's energy bills, but can lower the carbon footprint of our whole state. And so I think for EUT, having an interest, having a passion, which I do, not everyone has a passion to be on EUT, but I do. And so, yeah, that's definitely the one that I want to be on. How does that benefit the people of Camden and Rockport? Because you can dramatically lower their costs with deploying more solar panels and wind on a statewide basis, having grid storage to capture that energy when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining, and energy retrofits. All these things can make Mainers and people in Camden and Rockport not only more resilient to a war in Iran where we have oil shortages, but yeah, just have a greener Maine.
Thank you, Josh. Marcus?
So naturally, education, given that that's a big part of my background. I'm working on a policy address with AFT President Randy Weingarten right now on the appropriate use of AI and technology in schools and some policy solutions there that we can then come and take to Maine and pass those to benefit our kids. And then obviously housing and economic development. We haven't gotten to talk a lot about housing here, but I haven't just talked about this issue. I've already tried to put forth solutions. We tried to turn the Elm Street School into teacher housing. I worked with Representative Lookner in the last legislative session to try to make it easier for municipalities to gain access to resources for housing. And I've been working and talking with developers and realtors and nonprofits throughout this campaign on solutions to be able to invest more in housing, to streamline rules and regulations so we can get housing done faster, and to get private equity out of housing, to focus on modular housing and other ways that we can be innovative in our housing, and then looking at rentals, how we can incentivize landlords to turn to year-round residents rather than cashing in on summer people. So I have a lot of really great ideas around housing and want to be able to implement that because it is a huge driver for how people can afford to live and thrive in our area.
Thank you, Marcus. Peter?
First committee that I'd like to be on, along with you, the education is very important to me, how we support our young people. I have children who are teachers, and I have grandchildren who are students. I have worked with young people my whole life, and this is how we treat our young people, how we address our young people, how we support our young people. It's a canary in a cage of how we address our whole society. And we are an aging community, and it's not always welcoming to young people. How we need to think differently because the costs are skyrocketing, numbers of students are going down, and community members are paying more and more and complaining about the problems of that. We need to think in new ways to address and wrap our communities around our children in ways that we have not thought of before. This is, if we want to have sustainable support of our young people, we need to be there for them, not attack them like the idiot bathroom issues. We need to find ways that are all of us together, coming together to find creative solutions for education. That is a big committee. If I can't get on that, healthcare is the other one. That is just another unsustainable cost that we need to find ways to keep our healthcare options here in our region and not have them taken away from us.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to do a closing statement, and it's going to come back and start, in this case, since you started, Josh, Marcus, you get the opening, and we'll go Marcus, Josh, Peter, Rhiannon.
Great. Well, thank you again, everyone, for coming out tonight and listening to us. As you heard from all of us, this is a really important moment, not only to fight against the attacks coming from Washington, but to be able to create a better future for all. And we need somebody in this role with the experience to lead. We need somebody who's ready on day one. I have experience at the local, state, and national level, policy experience ranging from education to economics to healthcare that are all going to be set up for me to start delivering for you on day one. It is an asset to have a state legislator who has access to a host of people at all levels of our government and policy making to be able to assist us and have some great ideas to be able to implement. Send me to Augusta and I'll fight every day to make life more affordable for you, to support small businesses, to fight against the attacks coming from Washington, to figure out how to bring down healthcare costs through a public option and taking on insurance and drug companies, to lower utility costs by, the Public Utilities Commission. Every time a rate increase comes out, they act like Susan Collins. They say, oh, we're so concerned, and then they pass it. The legislature can stop them from doing that, and we need to force them to get in gear and stop passing on insane rate increases onto consumer. I'm ready to lead. I've been doing it my entire life based on who I am, coming from the working class and of the working class. We can't change the status quo unless we change the type of people who we elect. And that means sending somebody who is from the working class, knows what it's like to work every day and navigate this economy, and who will be your champion and your voice every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh?
Oh,
So we're going to do in the dyads. So,
got it.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out on this rainy evening. I want to serve the community that I'm from. I mean, growing up in Camden Rockport, I was surrounded by people from all walks of life, from blue collar workers, white collar workers, really running the gamut, and things have changed quite a bit in Camden Rockport. I mean, it has become so much less affordable, knocking on thousands of doors, that what I keep hearing time and time again is housing, healthcare, and then electricity. Housing especially. So many folks telling me, I wish my kids could move back here and have a place to live, but either they live upstairs or they're in a lower cost state and they can't get back. And so I'm doing this for my kids. Will is 3.5 and Simon is 6 weeks old. And I want to have a better future for them in our community. I have the temperament to do it and the experience working on lots of different committees and boards. I feel like in Augusta, it's really important to have a broad range of experience, because being a state rep isn't one issue. It's the whole state. It's energy, it's healthcare, it's housing, it's electricity. And so I'm ready to serve, and I hope I can earn your vote on June 9th. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And what did I say? Peter? Yes, no. Rhea and then Peter.
We're switching it up. You said Peter, then Rhiannon earlier. These are, we didn't get the questions ahead of time either, I want you to know. So
Yeah, they didn't.
We're doing a great job winging it.
All right. So Peter and then Rhiannon.
I don't mind either way.
It is an honor to run. It is so essential to me that we see Maine as a place that can lead. We can do things in Maine that you can't do in other parts of the country. And Maine has always been a leading place. The leading role, what we need to be looking at, is the local understanding of living. Whether we living locally, how we buy local, how we farm local, our art is local. This is a cutting edge of our country. How we pray local, how we shop, how we live and support each other in all these different ways. We don't need to have all of the politics be national. We don't need to have all the products coming from Amazon. How do we change our culture? This is a time we have in Augusta to change our culture, to change the way. We don't need to have data centers come in and take over our state. We don't need to have big corporations get great tax cut breaks to come in and promise 100 jobs and give us 5. We need to support and find ways that we are living local and lead the nation in the small farms, small businesses, creative ways of living together, the small churches rather than the mega churches or on TV, everything. This is what we need to find ways to, as you say, in the schools, get off the phone and be together with the students. This is what I'm running on, is that we're a local community that we can lead from who we are, the people we have gathered together.
Thank you, Peter. Rhea, wrapping it up.
All right, bringing it home. So ultimately, the legislature is a governing body. They make policy every day. And I am not here asking you to hire me to be a carpenter, because I do not have carpentry skills. And I am not asking you to hire me to be a mathematician, because I'm really bad at algebra. But I'm asking you to hire me to represent you in Augusta to make policy, and that is something I actually really know how to do. Because I lied earlier, I did not get my first soapbox at 12, I got it at 2. And I started being a rabble-rousing advocate then. And fortunately, I have learned that there's a little bit of a difference between activism, which is what I was then, and advocacy, which is what I do now. And that's taking all of that representation and turning it into the things that can pull the levers to make things different. And that's what our legislature does. So I am asking to earn your vote, because I think our vote is incredibly precious and incredibly valuable, more so than ever right now, to send me to Augusta to make policy. And the reason that I'm doing that is because the federal government is abdicating its responsibility to the people, and our rights are on the line, and the state is the place where we can not only protect and defend the rights of our citizens and each other, and our local people and our communities. I love that, Peter. But we can, frankly, and I'm gonna borrow this too, but we can lead, right? In 7th grade, I took Deer Go class. That's, everybody has to take that in the state of Maine, and that means I lead. So not only can we protect and defend our rights here in the state of Maine, but we can lead and be an example and a beacon for other states as they are trying to do the same thing. And that's what I would like to go do. Thank you.
All right, so let's give these people a round of applause. Thank you very much. And we're going to do a little shiftaroo here, and as all events like this, there's always something that happens. Just let me check, is Barbara Cray in the room someplace? We had a report that is not confirmed that she had some type of head injury today and needed to leave court. So she may not be with us, and that's all we know right now. But I guess I would like to invite you guys up, and yes, by all means, we'll trade out waters. Who needs a water? By the way, I want to thank Dash for picking up the waters because I forgot. Joan? I'm going to start, I guess I'm going to give grace, so I'm going to start with the sheriff candidates, and in the same way, I'm going to ask them to do an opening statement, then I'll ask them questions, and remember at the end, there's going to be time for audience questions as well. So, you know, more and more, I think this year than any other time, we recognize the role that our county law enforcement plays in kind of protecting the rights of people. And so with that in mind, I'm going to invite these Knox County Sheriff's candidates to introduce themselves and to do an opening statement, and then we'll go into questions for them. And I had, through a flip a coin, John Hanson, you would go first, Pat Polky, Sheriff Polky goes second, okay? So 3-minute opening, go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Hanson. For those of you that don't know me or have seen me out, I have been a resident of St. George for going on 36 years. I served 24 years total in law enforcement, most recently with the Knox County Sheriff's Office. Prior to that, I was in New Hampshire and Indiana. And before law enforcement, I was in the Merchant Marines. I sailed on freighters for 3 years. I did my tour in the Army Infantry, and I landed in law enforcement in 1980. Moved my family here to come to work for the Sheriff's Office, and it was the best move that I've ever made. I have never regretted coming to this state and living in this county. I retired in 2017 and went back lobstering, which I'm now on my 25th year of fishing. And this is my last year of fishing, and I was approached about seeking the sheriff's seat. And after some long, hard thought and fiscal digging, I pulled the trigger and opted to run for sheriff, and I'm hoping to bring the community together and work with the community as a whole.
Thank you, John. Pat?
Good evening, neighbors, friends, and families of Knox County. My name is Patrick Polky, and I'm honored to be sitting before you this evening as your Knox County Sheriff. First, I want to thank the UU Church, KCDC, Chair and Moderator Greg Marley, and everyone who helped put this event on this evening. Thank you. I'm a lifelong resident of this county. I was born in Rockport at Penn Bay Hospital, grew up in the town of St. George. I graduated from George Valley High School, and I've dedicated my life to service. I started that service as a junior firefighter in St. George at the age of 16. I enlisted in the U.S. Army while I was a senior in high school and went off into active service. I returned home and continued my service in the Maine Army National Guard, retiring from there as a first sergeant with 21 years of combined service. I committed my entire life to community's public safety. For over 30 years now, I've served you in nearly every uniform that you can imagine. I served as a firefighter, an EMT, parking enforcer, a dispatcher, a local police officer, a sheriff's deputy, and in 2022, I was appointed to step in as your sheriff, and in the fall of that year, you elected me to this office. The job is about tested leadership, institutional integrity, and over the last few years, we have faced complex challenges. But true leadership means working directly on solutions, not throwing our hands up in the air. I've helped address substance use and mental health crisis by collaborating with several community groups because we cannot simply arrest our way out of this problem. We have to take proactive, targeted measures and find the root causes and build long-term community resilience to these problems. I've actively gone to Augusta to testify to the legislature on critical issues, and I've championed the expansion of services for our marginalized and vulnerable populations. I've also helped to fight to stabilize our public safety services within our state. I've also worked with the Knox County Commission and helped them during some leadership crises they had within the dispatch center and with their administration over the last few years, helping to hold things together while they were able to rebuild and move our services forward in a safe and productive manner. The primary choice before you should be one with a proven steady hand with decades of public safety experience. I've always led this agency with transparency, accountability, and fairness. I ask for your vote in the Democratic primary this June 9th so we can continue the vital work of keeping Knox County a safe, stable, and just place to work and live. Thank you.
Right, first question, and the first one goes, Pat, you would be speaking first, and then John. Every state in the Union is facing an increase in ICE and Border Patrol actions against undocumented immigrants and people in the political asylum process. As a democratically led state, Maine has been targeted for intensive surge actions. And just this week, yesterday and today, reports of an increase again of actions within the past recent days. What are your standards of practice related to coordination with federal ICE agencies, and what will they be? And specifically, do you see it as the role of the sheriff to protect Maine's immigrants in Knox County?
So I'll answer the last part first. It is absolutely our role to protect everybody in our community, regardless of how they got here. The sheriff is a constitutional position. We're elected by you to represent your interests, to represent your public safety. Some of you may remember earlier this year we had to deal with this issue a little bit here in Knox County. The point is the sheriff is elected by the Maine people and has an oath to the federal Constitution, yes, but also the Maine Constitution. And we have authority only within the Maine Constitution. We are not responsible to enforce federal rules, whether they be criminal or administrative. We're responsible to enforce Maine's criminal rules. A lot of the things that ICE in particular is targeting are administrative violations. That is not our responsibility as sheriffs, as elected law enforcement officers in this state. Our job is to take care of our public safety interests. So the first part is I will continue to do that. We will focus on Maine law. We will focus on keeping our communities safe on that regard alone. Federal government often asks for assistance. One of the challenges in particular that I've been trying to address using our public safety partners in this state, which is Commissioner of Public Safety, and then some of our other federal agencies like Federal Marshals, Federal Bureau of Investigation, to figure out a way to communicate with our peers at DHS within ICE of why can you not communicate with us? Why are you taking these tactics that are different than what we are used to, and not communicating with those that are local law enforcement who know our communities best to help you mediate these problems. We don't want to arrest any of these folks. That is not our concern. If it's a public safety concern, we'll deal with it, but otherwise it is a completely administrative issue for the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you. John, same question?
I basically concur with what Pat's mentioned as far as taking care of all that are here, whether you're here as a migrant. If you're here lawfully, you're here lawfully. I come from an immigrant family. I am not real pleased with what I've seen ICE do now. I worked with ICE back in the 80s. It's a different game today, and the powers that be are changing the game. What we as sheriff have the ability to do is enforce Maine Constitution. And in doing that, that includes immigrants that are here validly and not creating any criminal activity.
Thank you. Next question, John, you go first and then Pat following. Corrections is one of the least visible parts of county government. What will you do as sheriff to maximize visibility, and specifically, what practices will you adopt or maintain to keep our community in the loop about jail progress and issues?
This is a hot button topic, and I have spent the majority of my research time going over the corrections budget. My personal opinion, based on the numbers that I have, what has taken place at our correctional facility is shameful, to say the least. When, without warning, 22 employees are let go after Christmas that were fully staffed, and now the jail is no longer a full working jail, but a 72-hour hold facility. The jail is in good condition per my last conversation with people that did the inspection. However, since this has come about,
John, visibility for the community, not going backwards, but what do you do if you're elected?
well, the problem is that as it stands right now, there is a $3.5 million contract that is supposedly going towards Two Bridges, so that Two Bridges takes over all the inmates from Knox County. And as the incumbent, the sheriff to come into this, that contract will already be solidified. So my hands are tied on where it is for the first year.
Visibility in the community.
Can you clarify what you mean by visibility?
How are you going to keep the community in the loop about what's going on with corrections? Yeah. Thank you. Pat, same question?
So I agree with John, this has been a hot issue. This specifically was born from a budget crisis, which was somewhat I think maybe the point of the question. The community didn't really know what was happening. And I've tried to work with the commission and continue to work, and we've made great progress in getting better at communicating with the community. There was a breakdown at some point during some of the administrative turmoil within the county to communicate well with the towns. So one of the active steps that I've taken to be more visible is, for the last almost 2 years, I've been going to town meetings in just about every town and giving updates on where we are at as a county. Mostly focusing on the sheriff, because clearly that's the position I currently have, but also trying to share updates with the other things like the dispatch crisis we had over a few years ago. It's hard for the commissioners in particular because they are elected, they only meet every so often, they find it harder to come out to the local communities. Where a sheriff is a full-time role, I've just taken on that burden to get out there and represent us as the county. It's about what we do together, and I think, I was younger in some of these things, but the county was somewhat adversarial with previous sheriffs and commissioners, and it's my hope to continue a less adversarial and a more collaborative approach. They are the fiduciary, I am the operations expert as the current sheriff. I get to tell them what we need. Their job is to work with the budget committee and the municipalities of can we draw the money to fund the operations we need. So that's my goal for transparency, is just to continue to stay engaged with the towns as much as possible, as direct as possible, to keep you informed.
Thank you. Pat, you catch first on this third question. So, community policing practices are designed to increase the connection between law enforcement and community members. Please let us know what specific practices are in place or are practices you will commit to increase community relationships. So
I'll start with what the deputies do. It is a challenge sometimes as a deputy, having started in this agency as a island contract deputy for the island of North Haven. It was a very small community. I was very engaged. When you only have 70-ish full-time residents, it's easy to get to know everybody. It is harder when you become the rural deputy and you now have 14 primary communities to cover, and then 4 communities who have police departments who you have to back up. It gets to be a challenge to do that. One of the things that deputies do often is they stop as many places as they can. Town offices, schools, convenience stores, anywhere they can throughout the community to engage with the public themselves. I myself try to do the same thing as much as possible, including trying to meet with the leadership of various groups throughout our community that are trying to bring services about to our community members. It can be a challenge sometimes, as many of them experience, is there's no connection sometimes. You heard about it earlier with our legislative candidates, that digital connection is the one we see the most, but that is the least productive in my opinion. It's about more engagement like this, where we're sitting face to face, one-on-one, having open discussion, maybe even healthy debate sometimes. But that's what I will continue to do, and the deputies will continue to do if you elect me again to be your sheriff.
John, same question, community policing?
Basically, I have started right in January when I made the decision to run for sheriff to make myself available to each select board and or town manager. I have met with 80% of them so far to get their feedback on what services they feel they need, what they're lacking, and what they would like to see in the future. And what I am primarily hearing is that they aren't seeing cruisers. They aren't seeing people out. And there are certain hot areas where there's a lot of drug use going on that needs to be addressed. I would be revamping the patrol and changing ranking around. As it stands right now, the department is very top-heavy with supervisors, and I would be shuffling some of that around to have them working more as working units as to riding a desk, including myself.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask a fourth question. And you started on this. So Knox County signed an agreement with the Two Bridges Regional Jail to house residents from Knox County for the next year. If any problematic jail conditions or lack of services come to your attention during that time, as we board our community members, what processes are in place or will be developed to resolve those issues? And this would start out with Pat.
So I have free access to Two Bridges Jail as the current sheriff. I have a key card to go there and visit with our residents as often or frequent as I want. There also is an appeal process that is connected directly to my system, where I get a message that if anybody makes any kind of complaint to the leadership of that organization, that I'm also seeing that and able to resolve that. Part of that was asked for because the sheriff's authority is not absolved just because somebody has a contract to manage the incarcerated. With that, we also took into account family and visitors. We are working on measures to make it much easier for the local residents who can't get to Wiscasset to visit with their folks at no cost. It does come with its challenges, however, and we're still working through those, but we have not seen a problem as of yet. I credit most of this to the work we've done already. For the last several years, we started a group called the District 6 Corrections Collaborative, which is the 4 counties of Prosecutorial District 6, which is Walden, Knox, Lincoln, and Sagadahoc, to find these types of efficiencies, to find ways to stop burdening the property taxpayer for the exorbitant increases we were seeing in corrections. In particular, one of the things that this $3.5 million contract per se does, they literally do everything for us. They cover every cost that comes, other than if it's an off-site medical expense. Every other expense is covered, and it actually has reduced our budget. We are seeing a minus 1.4% increase in this coming budget.
Thank you. John, same question?
I have to disagree on the budgetary figure put out that it's saving money. And the fiscal isn't done yet for 26. So it's an arbitrary figure, but as far as where I stand on it, my interest would be to have the community's input on whether they want to reclaim the jail to a fully functioning system, or if they want to leave it as a holding facility. Because ultimately, it's you people, just as well as I, Pat, Natasha, we're all paying taxes, and we all have to saddle this burden. To what degree? So, but it would be, in my opinion, community involved.
And so the process is, if people are residents in there run into difficulty, what would be the processes you would advocate for to be in place to resolve those?
Well, as it stands right now, those that are incarcerated there are, as Pat said, are being taken care of per this contract. So there's really nothing further that I could add to that.
Okay, thank you very much. So a 2-minute wrap-up from each of you in terms of finalizing this, and I've got John going first, Pat going first, John going second for the wrap-up. It's a reverse of the intro.
Okay. First, thank you everyone for having me this evening. As your sheriff, my highest priority is proactive safety of our neighborhoods. But I've got to balance that rigorous law enforcement with the health of our community and its stability. Since taking office, we've worked hard together to modernize our operations, strengthen public trust, and expand vital mental health and substance use support, but that work is not over. This June 9th primary is a vital opportunity to reinforce our shared commitment to community trust, safety, and professional integrity. True leadership requires absolute professional integrity, strict accountability, and the experienced, steady hand required to manage these complex crises equitably. I built that stable, modern foundation right here in our own county. I ask for your support and your vote, and as you're continuing to serve you as your sheriff, thank you.
Thank you. John?
And I also thank you folks for listening to us. I have to apologize. I'm not a politician. Never thought I would be sitting up here doing this. I was a cop for a long time. I know the job. I've done some serious financial digging on budgets to get myself up to speed. And I'm a very cut and dry person. I'm a want in one hand and a need in the other. And you got to know which one to deal with first. So what I can promise you is, if I am elected, I will be available to everyone, and I will communicate openly and full transparency. And I want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you, gentlemen. So Natasha, I find it's unsettling to both of us, but I still have some questions for the Attorney General office, and would you go ahead and engage in this process?
Yes.
An opening statement first for 3 minutes and then several questions?
Yes, and as I told folks in my staff earlier today and last week when we had a forum, at least the moderator can't put me in jail, which a judge certainly could do. So, my name is Natasha Irving. I am the district attorney for Prosecutorial District 6, and that is Saginaw, Lincoln, Knox, and Waldo counties. I was first elected in 2018, took office January 1st, 2019. And I grew up in Waldoboro. That says a lot about me if anybody knows Waldoboro around here. I grew up in Waldoboro. I grew up in South Waldoboro, which is almost more friendship than friendship, actually. So my father was the boat building teacher at the Voc School here in Rockland. I lived in Waldoboro after law school and eventually moved to Rockland in 2022. I have two just lovely little girls, 11 and 5. My 5-year-old Piper was the first baby born to a sitting district attorney. When I first started running, my older daughter Meredith was 3, and I was told that I needed to sit out of politics until I was done having babies. So I didn't take that. I didn't take that advice, and here we are. So when I ran, I took court-appointed cases. I had my own law firm. And I defended folks in criminal cases. I did child protective cases and represented parents. And day after day, I saw poor people, mentally ill people, folks that were addicted to substances, going to jail and prison for nonviolent offenses, and I thought it was barbaric. And when a client of mine named Brian got a 2-year sentence for shoplifting, I decided that I couldn't sit back as a defense attorney anymore if I wanted to change the criminal justice system. I had to do it. I had to do something about it, and I was going to run for district attorney. And I was elected the first reformer in the state of Maine, the first reformer district attorney in the state of Maine. I was the first Democrat in this district and the first woman elected in this district. On the radical notion that defendants, people accused of crimes, and people who have committed crimes are human beings, and they have to be treated that way by the prosecution. And so in the last 8 years, we've focused on diversion and deflection of folks who are not dangerous, of folks who, if they go to jail or if they go to prison, it is a guarantee that they will be higher risk and a higher risk of violence to the community. And it will also be the most expensive way to make someone higher risk. So we need to start using our taxpayer dollars wisely. We need to start treating our family members, our community members, our neighbors with humanity. And we need options that aren't just jail and prison. We need a district attorney who believes that justice can exist in something other than jail and prison. So I'm running for another term, another 4 years to keep this movement going and to be a leader in the state in the criminal justice reform movement.
Thank you, Rhiannon. That's going to fit perfectly in, Natasha, my mind, perfectly into the first question. So please describe your personal and professional philosophy regarding the balance between punishment and rehabilitation. And how specifically will that philosophy inform your work?
So I'm going to really show you guys how nerdy I am right now. My favorite book, I used to always say, was Crime and Punishment. Now I'm really into romantic fantasy, so I could probably go a different direction than Dostoevsky. But the point of Crime and Punishment is, in the most basic sense, that it's your conscience that's really the punishment when you've committed a serious offense, right, against other folks. My personal belief is that rehabilitation and community safety, victim safety, are the most important aspects of what we're doing here. There are rare occasions that I believe in punishment. Child sex offense cases, I I think that there is more than just community safety and rehabilitation involved in those cases, sexual assault cases, serious domestic violence cases. I do believe in some measure of a punitive measure in showing the community that we won't stand for these things and you will be held accountable. But for the very most part, I believe that our criminal justice system needs to focus on looking at the offender and doing everything that we can by looking at data, by looking at science, and using our resources to make them less likely to commit a crime in the future. Now, it makes us feel better when we're really mad at someone that's done something really bad. It makes us feel better to punish them, but I'm not in the business of retribution or revenge. We're in the business of justice and community safety. So I believe that our criminal justice system has been on the wrong track for about 50 years, where we've said you do the crime, you do the time. I want to be focused on data and science to drive our decisions and our policy, not on anecdote and not on retribution.
Thank you. And building on that, over the past 2 decades, we've seen a general reduction in violent crimes across the United States and including Maine. Today, what do you see as the most pressing criminal issues affecting Knox County? And please specify what actions you will lead across these 4 counties in addressing and adjudicating those crimes. And some of that you may have already addressed in your last statement.
So I think as far as public safety goes, the crime that is most likely to take your life, the life of a family member of yours, or to injure you seriously or injure a family member of yours, is impaired driving crashes. Those are OUI crashes, those are manslaughter cases, vehicular manslaughter. But this is exponentially more dangerous to folks in our community than violent crime. Folks getting behind the wheel impaired and driving down the road 60, 70 miles an hour. It could kill my kids, it can kill your kids. That's what is putting us in the most danger. So from my perspective, we need to hold the line on operating under the influence. It doesn't mean that I think first-time offenders and even second-time offenders necessarily need jail time. I do think we need to look at probation for second offenders and farther. I do think we're looking at jail time and prison time when we get to serious crash cases with OUIs. I think that's the most pressing issue. I believe that's the most pressing issue because that's what the data says. We also see that folks in our community who are mentally ill, seriously mentally ill, if they won't take them at the hospital, we're still going to take them, right? They're going to take them at the jail if you've allegedly committed a domestic violence assault, for instance, or another type of serious crime. We don't have mental health infrastructure in this state, and that is absolutely preposterous that we would be using a criminal justice system, using corrections officers and putting them in danger when folks really need to be in a hospital. I would say lastly, as I think all of us agree that domestic violence assault, really when we talk about that, we're typically talking about intimate partner violence. Anyone can be a victim of intimate partner violence, women, men, and folks in same-sex relationships, and folks of any gender. And we need to really build infrastructure so folks, I think Josh said this earlier, right, that folks can have a place to live and move to be safe.
And finally, and maybe briefly, I've heard you and Barbara both articulate a need for increase in state funding to support additional ADAs and staff in this region. Barring a miracle, the economic picture in this state may be bleak over the next several years. In what way would you restructure priorities to manage the need without more funding for staff, if that is the case?
So this has been the last 8 years of my job is I am the district attorney and I do have personal cases that I prosecute, but so much of what I do is really administering an office of 31 individuals, including 9 prosecutors that work for me. And that has been a constant issue. For instance, we have a severe lack of criminal defense attorneys in the state of Maine. So instead of just saying, well, I can't help it, I got to charge all these cases, I tell my staff that we need to not make cases risk of jail if that's going to be appropriate, right? We have to reduce charging lower level crimes because it is not an unlimited resource. So we've been doing that day after day, week after week, year after year since COVID. For instance, when COVID shut down the courts, I told my staff we need to reduce charging. We need to we need to lower our offers to resolve cases, because there is going to be a bottleneck here, and it is going to be a disaster to the criminal justice system if we can't have trials. So we've been doing that year after year after year. I will still, barring a miracle, I mean, we can't do any more with what we have, but we are continuing to strive to divert more cases. The real issue from my perspective is that we're the ER docs, but we're also the brain surgeons. But we're doing it in a war zone. It's coming at us like a fire hose. And my folks need to be able to take a step back and really focus on the serious crimes, or we need to have a dedicated prosecutor that's not the district attorney trying to administer the office, taking our manslaughter cases, our strangulation cases, and our sexual assault cases. So I suppose, I hope I'm not dodging the question, but those types of resource allocation and trying to make sure our office is working efficiently and effectively it has been a hallmark of my administration, because if we can't deliver justice efficiently, then we're not delivering justice at all in this system.
Thank you very much. And now a 2-minute wrap-up, Natasha?
Well, thank you, everyone. And I see some law enforcement folks in the room today, and I want to say thank you to the law enforcement folks here. You don't get thanked enough. I think yesterday, a Maine warden crashed an airplane, had an airplane crash and passed away. We know that our law enforcement officers are on the front lines. I know, and again, I'm a reformer. I came in here as a reformer. I'm still a reformer, and I'm a progressive. I know that our law enforcement officers are out there every day working with the community to try to solve problems in a humane way, that our corrections officers are treating our residents, right, our inmates, like human beings. And I see them, and I really, really appreciate it. I want to do this job for another 4 years. Talk to my family about this. They say, why can't you work as a defense attorney so we can have a Lamborghini? And I said, because I don't know why, I love this work. I love the people that I work with. I love working for justice. I love the process. I love being a criminal attorney. And I cannot picture myself doing anything else. So I ask you for your vote on June 9th. I have been a leader in this state in criminal justice reform, but I have also toed the line when it comes to reasonable reforms, not pulling the rug out from under the system, but trying to make sure we have a balance between public safety and humane treatment of individuals in the criminal justice system. I want to do this another 4 years, and I can't do it without your vote. So please, June 9th, show up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natasha. All right, so maybe we can have the legislative candidates up here, and we can kind of all crowd use these mics. And if you have a question as an audience member, we will bring over a microphone to you. Do I have a microphone runner who can volunteer? Oh, thank you. While we're getting folks up here, I also want to make sure that we are incredibly thankful and grateful to the First Universalist Unitarian Church here in Rockland for allowing us to use this space. So why don't we come up and we can be around the mic, someone can use this. Yeah, let's try and be here. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you have a question for someone specific, make that very clear. I will give their opponent an opportunity to answer that as well. And we're talking like 1 minute answers. So speed dating. One minute answer. A little after. Yeah. I got it. Anytime. So questions. Margaret.
This is a question for Josh. What? Did I?
And it's a Nikki. Thank you. Can you just...
I'll just go.
Go ahead.
This is a question for Josh. Marcus, Rhiannon, and Peter. Okay, and I'd appreciate a yes or no answer.
Yes or no?
Okay, we can tax summer houses or second homes at higher rates, but that does not solve the problem that over the past 5 years, property taxes in Knox County have increased by 42%. Towns have milked the cash cow of increased assessments by increasing their budgets by 45% and not decreasing our mill rates. Rockport has increased their annual budget by twice the rate of inflation. Other towns have done the same thing. Medicare and other federal programs increase payments by only cost of living increases. If elected, will you commit to introducing or voting in favor of legislation to cap town budgets to cost of living increases only so that seniors are not forced from their homes because of outrageous property taxes?
She's asking for a yes or no answer.
To cap town budgets?
I don't think that's legal.
Legislation to cap town budgets to rate of inflation.
What do we use?
No.
To cost of living increases.
To COLA increases and not anything additional. Sorry, so I'm just trying to get a clarification on the question, I guess.
I think we're going to try and use these from space. So try and speak with a big voice. You might move forward about 2 steps, everyone, and you can come up to this, Natasha. So I think you can do the yes and no while we're waiting.
No, because it's much more complicated than that.
Peter, Rhiannon, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean,
No, because we can't strong arm communities like that. I don't even think it's legal from a state point of view.
Peter, Rhiannon?
yeah, I'm gonna say no. Yeah. I've got all kinds of qualifying reasons why, but I also,
Yes or no?
no, I can't
Peter?
anticipate what towns need.
I'd say yes and no. I think we need to find a whole new way to do the tax code. It can't be based on the property tax. We have to find a new way to tax.
Okay. Next question? Okay. Can I have a volunteer to run that around, please?
Yes, I'm just wondering, when the legislature convenes in the next session, I'd like to hear from all of you folks. Will the
We're gonna have short time. so
Okay,
it's not
will
gonna be
you support the Wabanaki sovereignty legislation which will be introduced?
Yes.
1,000,000% yes.
Yes, yes.
All yes.
This is a question for Sheriff Polky. It seems like there's been some issues within the sheriff's office over this term. Like, I tried to submit for public records requests. It took more than a year, and I could only get them from the sheriff's office by going above the sheriff's office to the county administrator forum. We didn't have a board of visitors, then we did, then it got disbanded, then we didn't for a year, and then we did, and then it got disbanded again. My question is, can you tell us what's been going on behind the scenes that is resulting in some of these issues? Like, it took 7 months for the public to learn that a woman died of suicide in the jail. Like, what led up to this? How did we get there? And has it been resolved?
So I'm going to allow Pat to answer that, and I'm also going to be turning it to John since it's for that office.
So the specific death question in particular, there are state rules around death investigations, so a delay would be inaccuracy. They dictate when we can and cannot release information. As far as the county in particular, I can't answer for why you may have had delays. I do have people who work on FOAs or freedom of access requests. They follow the rules and work with our legal counsel on that, so I would have to look into a specific issue to answer that, but there should be no deliberate delay. So.
John, do you have an answer? Okay. Next question.
Everyone up there has mentioned a problem of money. And it seemed, and if everybody here goes to the town council and select board meetings, they're going to hear the same problem. The sheriff's problem with getting cars out on the around the county is money. So what I'd like to hear is, what can you do to help change the tax policies and create a better relationship between those who can pay taxes and those who need the services and need the funding?
Not an easy question. And you're asking that of the group as a whole?
As a whole. I mean, it's anyone who wants to talk.
As sheriff, it's pretty easy. We don't have a lot of control, but what we can do is support those legislators, the commissioners, those towns that are looking at new ways of doing business. The only say we have as sheriffs is trying to apply for grants, but as you've heard, a lot of that stuff is drying up, especially at the federal level. So it's about, in my opinion, becoming more creative in how we distribute taxes and how we get those taxes.
I mean, we need to increase the tax base. Okay. We need to increase the tax base. We need to tax wealthy people more, and we need to take out the profit motive of a lot of major systems like, as I've said, healthcare and electricity. I mean, to me, it's fairly straightforward. Efficiencies of having consumer-owned programs and taxing the wealthy who can pay much more of their fair share.
Briefly, gentlemen?
Do you mind if I go? Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead, are you sure? Right.
Who's
This
got the
is
birthday?
what I've been
Come
running
on.
at. We have to think differently rather than just Democrat and Republicans fighting each other. This is going to be a unified effort to look at what all other states are doing, what we can do, why are we paying so much high taxes and having the services getting less and less. This is a fundamental issue of this election, how we can do this differently. And it's not just this way or that way. We need to really broaden the base and get out of this fighting back and forth and the craziness that the Republicans are bringing in from out of state to push that out so we as Mainers can find solutions and work together to find it. This is the issue of this election.
So I'm going to build on that too and actually agree. So we need to grow the base. We have 1.3 million people. We have a ton of geography to cover, including all of our small towns and territories. So we need to generate additional revenue. We know that local investment actually creates revenue generation. The Maine Center for Economic Policy has some pretty good things about that. So if we can get affordable childcare going, we can actually have people going to work. They are earning more revenue. They are paying payroll taxes. They are purchasing homes, then those property taxes and so forth. We also need to incentivize local purchasing and procurement. So for every dollar somebody spends at my locally owned business, about $1.58 to $1.88 circulates throughout the local economy. That's a multiplier effect. When you spend that dollar at a big box store like Walmart, which we all need, clotheslines and clothespins one day, right? But when you spend that money at some of these larger places instead of locally owned places, that money is actually only in part coming back to your community. You are receiving less than that dollar back, rather than that $1.58. So that's there you go.
Well, I would just echo everything Rhiannon just said. I agree also in terms of how we have a more progressive tax structure in the state and have the wealthy and out-of-state homeowners pay a little bit of their fair share. I also mentioned that we need to relook at funding formulas. The Mid-Coast gets the short end of the stick for a lot of how funding is distributed in the state, and it needs to be looked at based on median income and not just housing valuation. We also need to make it easier for people to start and sustain small businesses. That is expanding the tax base and how we can get more revenue and jobs in our area. So that's a big piece of business that we need to focus on in the Mid-Coast.
So unless someone's got a tight last question.
I had something I wanted to say. Can I say something really? Sorry, I'll be really quick. There's a concept called justice reinvestment. And the idea is we're spending all our money on jails, which that work really well to make people higher risk, but we're not spending any money on mental health facilities and infrastructure, which actually takes care of the problem. So that's what I would propose. Let's spend our money like adults.
Last question.
Thank you. John, this question's for you. Sorry. I understand when you worked in Gorham, you were prosecutor?
Yes.
Okay. Have you maintained your license your legal license in your bar?
In the state of New Hampshire, you go through a schooling for prosecutorial education. It is not bar associated. My prosecutions were up to felonies, and anything that was a felony went to the county attorney. I handled civil and misdemeanor.
So you're not actually an attorney?
I'm not an attorney.
Okay. My hope was that you could help your office in short.
You're hired.
All right, and Pat, this one seems so targeted, it doesn't seem like the truth. All right.
I was
So-
not an attorney.
I'm going to call this done. I'd like to wish Marcus a happy birthday. And you've been a fantastic audience, and you guys have been a fantastic group of candidates, and I wish you all well. So, early voting is starting, and my philosophy is always vote early, vote often.
Also, I would like to do a last-second plug for Clean Elections for the Clean Elections program. Go online. You can enter in your information and give $5 to your local candidates to help them all run for office.
Thank you, guys.
And if you want to gentle up and ask questions of these people, please do.